Michigan has had many events that deserve praise. Today, I am picking out my top 10 moments in Michigan history. After Ty Cobb's retirement in 1926, the Detroit Tigers struggled with mediocre records for years to come. It wasn't until 1934 when they started to get back on track. They went to the World Series that year but fell short in Game 7 to the St. Louis Cardinals. The next year, all of that would change. The 1935 Detroit Tigers featured 4 future Hall of Famers: Hank Greenberg, Mickey Cochran, Goose Goslin, and Charlie Gehringer, to be exact. Even though the season prior they had a better record, their 93-58 record was good enough to give them the AL pennant by 3 games over the New York Yankees. Detroit would be facing the Chicago Cubs for a thrilling 6-game series the Tigers would end up winning because of Goslin's dramatic walk-off RBI single, securing the 4-3 victory and the Tigers' first ever World Series win.
With 2 out, that left it up to Goose Goslin, and he gave the Cubs the bird with a solid single to right, and a delirious Cochran scampered home with a winning run, and the Detroit Tigers had won their first modern World Championship.
After finishing with the best record in the NBA, the Pistons swept through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference Finals, they had faced the Chicago Bulls, who they had defeated in the conference semifinals a year earlier. Although the Bulls were able to win 2 of the first 3 games, the Pistons' use of their Jordan rules defense wore out Michael Jordan, which set up Detroit's second consecutive NBA Finals appearance against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Pistons' overpowering play allowed them to sweep the Lakers, who struggled to fill the defensive void left by Byron Scott's injury prior to the start of the finals. In addition, Magic Johnson pulled a hamstring early in the second game and was unable to play the rest of the series. The Pistons were successfully able to defend their title in 1990. After winning 59 games and a 3rd straight division title, the Pistons cruised through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs before playing a tough Eastern Conference Finals against Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls once again. The Pistons and Bulls split the first 6 games before Detroit finished the series with a decisive 93-74 victory in Game 7.
With the end of their season-long quest at hand, the Pistons readied themselves for one final test of their championship resolve.
Got all day to get a shot.
Yeah, we got to take the last shot.
Everybody get some heart right now.
Let's go to a 1-2.
Let's see your X. Anything, you got to get the ball in his hand.
Let's go X. Go X.
Who would have thought this when they were 7 down just a couple of moments ago? Credit the microwave.
20 seconds left. 90-90. Game 5 of the finals.
Rodman gets it into Isaiah with 19. Isaiah taking his time, directing traffic. They spread things out along the baseline. Isaiah watching that clock work down with 10. Isaiah's going to go 1-on-1 on quarter.
A little shake and bake.
Right side pass to Vinnie Johnson with 3.
DJ against Kersey.
Vinnie puts up a 14-footer.
It's unbelievable, George, that shot. What guts? What guts?
It's 92-90. The microwave scores with 0.7 seconds left in the game.
Improved highways along the eastern shores of the Lower Peninsula brought increased automobile traffic to the Straits region starting in the 1910s. The state of Michigan had initiated an automobile ferry service between Mackinac City and St. Ignace in 1923. Doing so caused traffic backups to stretch as long as 16 miles. By 1928, the ferry service had become so popular and so expensive to operate that Michigan Governor Fred W. Greene ordered the department to study the feasibility of building a bridge across the strait. It was deemed feasible, and construction of the bridge began on May 7, 1954. After 3.5 years plus $100 million, the bridge finally opened on February 1, 1957.
Now the bridge is finished. Engineering and manufacturing know-how have joined together, 2 parts of the Wolverine State long divided by nature, enhancing the area's industrial development and opening to easy access this great mecca for sportsmen and vacationers the year round, forging what will become another strong link in our new federal system of interstate and defense highways. Designers, engineers, and bridgemen of the future will build a longer bridge, but even when they do, This great bridge will stand as a resolute monument of steel to man's eternal urge to construct. A 5-mile dream come true.
The Bath School Massacre was a series of violent attacks perpetrated by Andrew Kehoe on May 18, 1927 in Bath Township, Michigan. It killed 38 elementary school children and 6 adults and injured at least 58 other people. Andrew Kehoe was a 55-year-old school board treasurer and was angered by the increased taxes and his defeat in the spring 1926 election for township clerk. He had a reputation for difficulty on the school board and in personal dealings. In addition, he was notified that his mortgage was going to be foreclosed. Kehoe murdered his wife Nellie and detonated various incendiary devices on his homestead on the morning of May 18th at about 8:45 a.m., causing all of the police and firemen to go to that location. On the other side of town, an explosion devastated the north wing of the Bath Consolidated School building, killing 36 school children and 2 teachers. Kehoe had used a time detonator to ignite hundreds of pounds of dynamite and incendiary pyrotrol, which he had secretly planted inside the school over the course of many months. As rescuers arrived at the school, Kehoe drove up, stopped, and used a rifle to detonate dynamite inside his shrapnel-filled truck, killing himself, the school superintendent, and several others nearby, as well as injuring more bystanders. During rescue efforts at the school, searchers discovered an additional 500 pounds of unexploded dynamite connected to a timing device set to detonate at the same time as the first explosives on the other end of the school. His plan was to blow up the entire building, with everyone inside.
There are still, of course, relatives in the area. There are still, of course, people from the Bath community who have ties to people who were injured or killed in the bombing.
Even after all the attacks at schools nationwide, including Columbine, Sandy Hook, the disaster in Bath is still the most deadly school attack in history.
In 1835, the Michigan Territory enacted its first constitution, but statehood was delayed until 1837 due to the Toledo War. The Upper Peninsula was given to Michigan after the territory pulled out of the contest. President Andrew Jackson signed a bill making Michigan the nation's 26th state. Thus, on January 26, 1837, Michigan was finally able to become a state. During World War II, the United States needed help creating ammunition and other means of weaponry for the fighting overseas. Michigan played a big part in this by converting all automobile manufacturing plants into war machine makers. Henry Ford's son Edsel created a mile-long plant during this time. The only use for this building was to produce an aircraft called the B-52 Liberator. The plant was able to push out the machine at a rate of 1 per hour. Michigan did not only make planes, it also produced many other things needed for the war. Tanks, mobile units, ammunition, and food rations, to name a few. It even helped create a key part in the building of Little Boy, the bomb that was used on Hiroshima. Michigan was one, if not the most important factor for World War II. Creating the things that Michigan had given to the war effort earned the state a new nickname, the Arsenal of Democracy.
Here was a crawling juggernaut of modern warfare, constructed of the world's finest armor steel, assembled by the very engineers and experts who planned its production, with a gross weight equal to that of a 5-room frame house. Its upwards of 35,000 parts were assembled with skill and precision. And nearby, number 2 tank, a second sample job, was also already well on its way toward completion. Here indeed was forceful evidence of industry doing a job for defense. Uncle Sam wanted speed and performance, and he got it. And the arsenal which was to produce them in the quantities required was a truly great monument to the spirit of American men and American industry.
Henry Ford introduced the very first Model T on October 1st, 1908. The car was built at Ford's Pickett plant and assembled by hand, resulting in small production numbers. Only 11 cars were made during the first month of production. This car did not only revolutionize the automobile industry, it changed society. Almost everyone was able to purchase one of these due to the low cost of $850. The price got even lower in 1924, going down to a staggering $260. Now nobody had an excuse to not own a car. Michigan and Ohio are now famous for their college football rivalry, but in 1835, the residents of the Wolverine and Buckeye states nearly came to blows over a small area of land called Toledo. Before Michigan was a state, Ohio disregarded the boundaries set by the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 and claimed its new boundary would run along a line north of the Maumee River. Michiganians did not like this because the actual border for Michigan on maps depicted that it actually owned the land. When Michigan petitioned to become a state, Ohio put pressure on the Congress to support its new boundary agreement. Governors from both states organized militiamen and marched into the marshes of Toledo Strip. Shots were fired, but nobody was hit. A decision by President Andrew Jackson officially put an end to the war and gave Michigan the Upper Peninsula in exchange for Toledo. The Flint water crisis started in April 2014 when the city changed its water source from the treated Detroit water to the Flint River. When officials failed to apply corrosion inhibitors into the water, problems in lead contamination created a serious public health danger. The improperly treated Flint River water caused lead from aging pipes to leach into the water supply and into the population's bodies. The water contained a heavy metal neurotoxin which, when consumed, causes elevated blood levels in the human body. It also caused an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in the county that has affected 77 people and has killed 10. On January 5, 2016, the city was declared to be in a state of emergency by Governor Rick Snyder, and less than 2 weeks later, then President Barack Obama declared it to be a federal state of emergency. This authorized additional help from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Department of Homeland Security. Multiple government officials have resigned over this issue, but very little action has actually been made to help the problem. Governor Snyder did, however, issue an apology and sent $28 million in supplies for the city of Flint. Over the course of the next years, around $400 million has been sent to Flint to help fix the problem in the pipes. Some of the money has been given to the population of the city for the healthcare costs and loans created from the crisis. As of April 2018, the problem still exists today.
The state of Michigan has declared the city of Flint, the water crisis that they have experienced, over. That's right, over. On Friday, Governor Rick Snyder said the water in Flint it's safe, folks. You can go ahead and drink it. And they will soon end the free bottled water program to the residents of Flint, and you can imagine the folks in Flint are not real happy about that. Manila Chan's been following the story and has more on this. We just did a story on this not long ago about how the people were upset about the fact that they couldn't drink the water.
That's right, and residents simply do not trust what the government is telling them. So understandably so, given what the local government and the state government has told them about the water back in the first place in 2014. The state has reportedly spent about $650,000 a month on the bottled water program and looking to end the free bottled waters immediately as soon as local distribution centers run out of supplies. Flint Mayor Karen Weaver had this to say about the program's abrupt end, quote, "We did not cause the man-made water disaster, therefore adequate resources should continue being provided until the problem is fixed and all the lead and galvanized pipes have been replaced." The state of Michigan has agreed to allocate about $87 million to inspect and replace pipes throughout the city as part of a deal reached in a federal court. But still, there are miles of pipe work yet to be finished. Governor Snyder's office admits that while the tap water will never show zero lead, they say the water has tested below the EPA's federal guidelines as to what's acceptable for the last 2 years. Now, Flint residents are still uneasy about the whole thing, especially since news of Nestle Water upping their draw from Michigan's groundwater from 250 gallons per minute to nearly double that, 400 gallons per minute. Michiganders have shown their disapproval in record numbers. More than 80,000 people have said they oppose the deal, and only 75, yes, count that, folks, 75 residents say they approve. This is still more than a dozen state and local officials are still being indicted for their role in the Flint lead water crisis, where so far at least 15 people have died and hundreds more have taken ill from lead poisoning. So, Ed, local doctors say folks from Flint will need years of monitoring to ensure that they haven't had any long-term harm from this contamination, especially in young children. So the state says state may be removing these red flags, as you say, but the true damage from this water crisis will take several more years to fully unfold, according to all the health experts.
The 1967 Detroit race riot was the bloodiest riot in the summer of riots. It all started due to a police raid of an unlicensed bar known as the Blind Pig. Spectators were appalled of the arrests made and started looting once the police had left. The Michigan National Guard was sent into Detroit to try and calm down the participants, but this only enraged them further. Lyndon B. Johnson sent in even more military to ease the tension, which eventually made the rioting go away. In the end of it all, 7,200 arrests were made, 1,189 were injured, and 43 people had lost their lives.
We're here at the request of Governor Romney. We're about to go downtown and meet with him and with Mayor Kavanaugh and to discuss such specific plans for support and assistance as may be required.
Law and order have broken down in Detroit, Michigan. Pillage, looting, murder, and arson have nothing to do with civil rights.
After I was shot, I just fell to, right to the pavement because I didn't know how many shots were coming off after that.
Were you bewildered or angry or what?
I don't think it's right for my people to act the way that they're acting. This is all that I can say about the thing because we're fighting one war now in Vietnam and we were losing, as it is. So, I mean, why should we come back here and fight a war among ourselves?